Hey, I'm Amanda Vernon. Welcome to Word for the Week. My word for the week is the milk of her comfort. I'd like to share how I heard God speaking to me in Mass this past weekend, what I feel the Lord is calling me to do about it, and I'd like to ask how my word for the week might apply to your life as well. So in my family, my husband David holds down the fort. Now, this applies in many ways. Like when I'm out on the road, he's home with all four of our children, or in our business, David runs everything behind the scenes. He's like the backbone of our ministry. And the same is true when we go to Mass as a family. So this past weekend, David sat in the pew. All of our children sat amongst us, but if any child needed to leave Mass, say to go to the bathroom or to make loud vocal noises, then I would be the parent to escort this said child out until she in this case was calm enough to rejoin the family in the pew. So 2-year-old Sarah and I were out of the main church for most of the Mass. Thankfully, there's like speakers in the vestibule and in the cry room, so we could hear what's going on and participate. But when we finally made it back into Mass, it was almost communion time. And as the communion hymn started, Sarah seemed to really appreciate the music. I could tell she was really listening. And the song went something like this. I will rejoice. I will be glad. I will praise God who holds my life in his hand. So Sarah looks up and she knows that George is the name of the pianist, and so she just on the fly came up with her own version of the song, which she started singing loudly enough for the people around us to hear her, and she sang, I will be George, I will be fine in this church. And then she got a little sassier and she sang, I will not pray, at which point I had to kind of curb her version of the song and redirect her attention toward actually praying and moving forward up toward communion to get her blessing. So the word that stood out to me at Mass this weekend was from the first reading, at which point I was in the church with David and the other kids in the pew. And the whole reading describes Jerusalem, which points toward heaven, as a mother who loves her child, who's holding her child close. And this child is so comforted to be just intimately connected with its mother. So the words that really resonated with me were the milk of her comfort. And as I've prayed and asked the Lord what he wants me to do about this word, I'm thinking about the retreat that I'm going to be on this week. And I'm going to be asking God really for discernment and wisdom about ministry. So David and I have made the decision to go all in with ministry, to use all of our resources and our professional endeavors for evangelization. But the question now is how? Not just how, like the means, we can use YouTube, we can use live events, but what to say, which message to focus on, which aspects of our journey is God calling me to share exactly. So through my word for the week, I feel the Lord is really asking me to remember some specific advice from my spiritual director. So my spiritual director is Sister Barbara Klein. She's a Franciscan sister of the Eucharist, and she told me once, Amanda, you are mothering through your ministry. So thinking about Sarah and Mass this weekend, she was hilarious and spirited. I don't want to say to a fault, but I had to, redirect, as I mentioned, a number of times. And yet, I felt so close to her in Mass. Like I was holding her and she would put her head down only for 2 seconds at a time, but she would cuddle for those 2 seconds. And I just felt this deep maternal bond with her. But I realized in prayer that that's not the first time I felt that kind of love. And even with my children, my 4 children, like I have felt that motherly care before in life, before I was a mom. I felt as close to my siblings growing up as I do to my own kids, believe it or not. But as I'm thinking on this word, the milk of her comfort, and remembering Sister Barbara's words, I'm realizing that maybe in ministry, I need to point others to that sort of like maternal care that God has for us that we experience in the church. And that maybe the Lord will allow me to share that kind of love with a lot more people. And that's pretty exciting. So I'm going to try to hang on to that word as I move through my retreat this week. So for those of you who are watching, who might not have the strongest relationship with your own mom, or maybe you did in the past and now it's a little rocky or a little stressful, I'll invite you to remember with me that God's love is also reflected in a mother's love, and that we can turn to Him for this deep sense of comfort even when we feel really uncomfortable, and even if maybe we're missing out on some love from our own mother's heart, that God can supply that need. And as it also says in this first reading from this past week, as a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you. This episode is made possible by my patrons. Thanks to new patron Maria. Their support empowers me to share my experience of God and the church while feeding my family at the same time. To become a patron or to make a one-time donation, click the link below. You can also subscribe to my channel. You can like, comment on, or share this video to help us reach even more people. And in closing, if you'd like to hear a brand new song that's inspired by my word for the week, check out my recording of She Laughs at the Days to Come.